The day I learned what betrayal truly felt like, I was sitting at the small oak kitchen table in our Arizona ranch house, surrounded by a dozen college acceptance letters. Yale, Columbia, Caltech. The names practically glowed in the sunlight streaming through the dusty window. My fingers shook as I opened the latest one. From Duke. Congratulations. The word blurred behind the sting in my eyes. Mom, Dad, I called, my voice cracking. I got into Duke. I expected cheers, maybe a hug. Instead, silence. Then came the soft patter of slippers on tile. My mother appeared in the doorway, her face unreadable. My stepfather trailed behind her, his arms crossed, jaw tight. I was 18 and I suddenly felt 10 years younger. That's impressive, Zoe, my mom finally said, her tone flat. She glanced at my stepfather, who gave a tired sigh. Sit down, honey, we need to talk. My stomach dropped. I eased back into the chair, acceptance letters still cradled in my lap like glass. It's about Ethan, my stepfather began. Ethan, my older stepbrother, the golden child, the one who barely scraped through high school and now fancied himself a business mogul. He's finally onto something big with his crypto platform, he continued. It's gaining real traction, but he needs capital to expand. Mom stepped forward, resting her hand on the back of a chair. We've decided to invest in his startup. It could change everything for this family. I blinked. What about my tuition, the college fund? You said... We used it, my stepfather said bluntly. All of it. You what? Zoe, my mother snapped. Don't be dramatic. College isn't going anywhere. You can take out loans or go to Mesa Community for a while. I looked between them. These people who had helped me fill out applications, who had talked about Ivy Leagues like they were my destiny. Now they stood there, casually ripping it all away in favor of Ethan's pipe dream. But you promised, I whispered. We did what's best for the family, my mom said, turning away. And just like that, the future I'd worked so hard for shattered. All I had left was my name, my dreams, and the $100 I'd saved from my part-time job at the diner. So I left. Again. Ethan had always been their golden boy. 3 years older than me, he'd dropped out of community college to chase one big idea after another. While I spent my high school years pulling straight A's, leading the science club, and winning scholarships, Ethan drifted from one failed app concept to the next. Each time, he'd pitch my parents some grand vision, some guaranteed breakthrough, and every time, they opened their wallets like he was the second coming of Steve Jobs. How much? I asked. My voice was low, cold. What? My stepfather gave me a confused look. How much of my college fund did you give him? My mom shifted, looking anywhere but at me. All of it. The number made my throat tighten. $212,000. Everything saved from the moment I was born. Birthday checks, bonds, scholarships, savings from years of part-time work. Gone. I stood up so fast my chair clattered to the floor. Did you even ask me? That was for my future. Zoe Marie Parker. My stepfather's voice thundered through the kitchen. Enough. This was a family decision. A decision I had no part in, I snapped back. Ethan's project could change everything, my mom said quickly. He just needs this one boost. But what about me? My Duke acceptance, my dream? My voice cracked. My stepfather's jaw tightened. If you can't see that this is what's best for the family, maybe you're not ready for adult decisions. Cool off in your room. I stared at them. At their disappointment, not in what they'd done, but in me for questioning it. And that's when it hit me. I'd never really been part of the plan. I was the reliable one, the safe bet, the one they could sacrifice. I didn't cry when I got to my room. I didn't scream. iPad, jeans, hoodies, toothbrush, laptop, passport, birth certificate, the prepaid emergency credit card my aunt gave me last Christmas, and, from my nightstand drawer, the $100 I hadn't deposited yet, tutoring money I planned to use for a Duke hoodie. I paused only once, watching from the window as Ethan's Tesla pulled into the driveway, all confidence and grins. My parents lit up as he walked in. Their golden boy. They didn't even knock on my door. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. First, an email to Duke. Dear Admissions. With deep regret, I must decline your offer. Due to unexpected financial hardship, I will be unable to attend this fall. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely, Zoe Parker. Next, a short message to my parents. You've made your choice, now I'm making mine. Don't look for me. Then I powered off my phone, yanked out the SIM, and tossed it in the trash. I slung my backpack over my shoulder, gave one last glance to my trophies and certificates, evidence of a life spent trying to win their approval, and climbed out the window, just like I did when I was 14 sneaking out for stargazing nights. My feet hit the ground. I didn't look back. In my pocket was $100. In my heart was the fire of a girl determined to rise without help, without praise, and without family. I didn't know then that in 10 years I'd be sitting across from them in a boardroom, their desperate eyes begging for a lifeline from an investor they didn't recognize as their daughter. But first I had to become her, one bold step at a time. They wanted to bet everything on Ethan. Fine. I'd bet everything on myself. And I wouldn't need their $212,000 to do it. The first night of freedom tasted like lukewarm coffee and adrenaline. I sat in a 24-hour diner just outside Phoenix, Arizona. My backpack rested against my legs like a safety net, while my phone screen dimmed to black, battery finally dead. Before it shut off, I saw the tally: 12 missed calls from Mom, 4 from my stepfather, and 1 smug text from Ethan. Don't be dramatic, Zoe, come home. I ordered another cup of coffee. My fingers trembled as I spread my remaining cash across the chipped Formica tabletop. $86.27. The bus ticket from Mesa to Phoenix had taken more than I expected. Refill, hon? The waitress asked, balancing a tray of hash browns. Her name tag read Irene, 5 faded stars below it. Thanks, I said. Then a pause. Are you guys... Hi. She raised an eyebrow, eyeing the tailored blazer, the laptop, and the nerves I couldn't hide. Kitchen help, she finally said. Graveyard shift, $12 an hour plus pooled tips. I nodded. I'll take it. There's a weekly rate motel down the road. Tell Dave I sent you. He'll knock $20 off. That night, in a motel room that smelled like bleach and desperation, I flipped open my laptop. My acceptance letter to Duke was still tucked into the side pocket of my bag, a relic of the life I'd left behind. As I stared at it, something sparked. I used to tutor kids in chemistry and calculus. Wealthy families from Scottsdale who wanted to see results. I charged $60 an hour. They always came back for more. Now, I saw the opportunity. I opened a blank doc and started typing. Clear path tutoring, elite academic coaching by a Duke-admitted scholar. I worked through the night. Using my web design skills from AP Comp Sci, I built a simple site, polished the wording, then spent $30 at a print shop down the block for business cards. For the next 6 months, I lived on 4 hours of sleep and 2 jobs. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I scrubbed dishes and prepped orders at the diner, learning inventory, margins, and staff dynamics from Irene, who turned out to be a former accountant who bought the place after a divorce. From 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., I took on tutoring clients. My first was the son of a motel guest, struggling with AP Bio. Word of mouth spread like wildfire. Within weeks, parents from wealthier parts of town were paying me to drive out and coach their kids. They didn't care about my name. Zoe Parker became Z Carter. A fresh identity for a fresh start. By month 3, I was making more in a week than I had in a month at the diner. I quit the kitchen job, though I still dropped by every Sunday to help Irene with her books. She'd become my unlikely mentor. You've got a head for numbers, she said once. But you're dangerous because you actually give a damn. She was right. My students didn't just want help, they wanted hope. A chance to break into elite schools just like I once dreamed of. And I knew how to get them there. One afternoon, while helping a student draft a personal essay, his mom looked up from her phone and said, half joking, "If only I could clone you, every parent in Phoenix would pay for another you." That night, I couldn't sleep. Trust myself? No. But scale? Absolutely. I messaged a few peers, students who had deferred Ivy League admissions or were on gap years and needed income. I offered them 70% of client fees to work under my brand, using my methods and materials. I'd handle marketing, scheduling, and client outreach. Within 2 months, ClearPath Tutoring had 5 tutors. By month 6, we had expanded to Tempe, Flagstaff, and even Las Vegas. My first $100,000 came faster than I could have imagined, split between tutoring and smart investments in undervalued edtech stocks I learned about from clients' parents. I lived simply. Cheap rent, no car, no splurges. Every dollar went back into growth. One of my students was Lila Chen, daughter of Phoenix investor Jason Chen. One day during a break, I spotted an investor pitch deck on the kitchen table. "Dad's nervous," Lila said casually. "His company's running low on cash, and they can't find smart money investors." My eyes locked on to the first page. Phoenix Tech Solutions seeking strategic capital partnership. And just like that, I saw the next level. If you felt the sting of being underestimated and dreamed of turning it into your greatest strength, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what Zoe does next. Because this story is just getting started. The new energy storage venture was collapsing under its own weight, but Ethan was in too deep to back out. It was eerily familiar. Energy storage, just like his last dozen revolutionary ideas. That night, I stayed up researching Caltech's prototype, the one I saw on Jason Chen's desk. By sunrise, I knew 2 things. First, their core tech approach was fundamentally flawed. And second, I knew exactly how to fix it. It took me 3 weeks to land a meeting with Jason Chen, leveraging every relationship I'd built through my tutoring clients and mentors. When I finally sat across from him in his sleek downtown Phoenix office, he looked intrigued but skeptical. "Miss Carter," he said, steepling his fingers, "my daughter says you're brilliant, but what makes you think you understand high-level energy storage?" I opened my laptop and started my presentation. 4 hours later, he wasn't skeptical anymore. His tone had changed. "You want in?" he asked. "I'll offer 30% equity if you can deliver." I countered immediately. "Make it 40% and give me full control of the technical side." He agreed. 6 months later, Caltech's updated system, designed under my direction, was making headlines as the future of energy storage. The technology Ethan had always dreamed of creating, I'd actually brought it to life, not with a handout, with a pitch, a prototype, and results. My net worth hit 9 figures, seemingly overnight, but I didn't stop there. Using Caltech's credibility as a launchpad, I began quietly acquiring distressed tech startups in the energy sector. Each acquisition was made through layers of holding companies, trusts, and private capital networks. Zoe Parker disappeared from the business scene entirely. Z. Carter, founder of ClearPath Holdings, took her place. I moved from Phoenix to Los Angeles to San Francisco, always staying ahead of any family connections that might catch on. I didn't want their attention. Not yet. But I watched them. Through carefully planted contacts and private reports, I kept track of my family's slow collapse. Ethan's ventures failed, again and again. My parents sold properties to cover the losses. The Parker family name, once respected in Arizona's business scene, was now whispered with pity. Then, one Monday morning in my penthouse office in Soma, my assistant laid a file on my desk. "You'll want to see this," she said. I opened it and smiled. Parker Innovations is seeking investors. They were desperate, barely solvent. Ethan had convinced them to take one last shot, with tech eerily similar to the system I'd perfected with Caltech. My father was meeting with potential investors that Friday. "Set a meeting," I said. "Use ClearPath Holdings. Let's see if they recognize the daughter they wrote off." The Parker office hadn't changed. Same steel and glass facade, same fake modern art, same receptionist who didn't even look up. But everything else had. I stepped through the doors in a tailored navy power suit. My heels echoed with confidence. 10 years ago, I left with $100 and a shattered dream. Now I was here to buy the company that threw me away. "Miss Carter," a young assistant greeted me. "They're waiting for you in the conference room. May I take your coat?" I handed it to her without a word. "Would you like coffee?" "Green tea, no sugar, steep it exactly 4 minutes," I said, not missing the irony. My mother used to roll her eyes at my obsession with precision. In the elevator, I took a breath. This was it. The doors opened, revealing my father, Gregory Parker, at the head of the long table, my mother beside him, still perfectly put together, though her smile didn't reach her eyes, and Ethan, arms crossed, legs stretched, eyes glued to his phone. Miss Carter, my father stood, offering a handshake. We've heard impressive things about your firm. I shook his hand, it trembled slightly. Let's begin, I said, sliding my laptop open and casting charts onto the screen. Your company's decline began almost exactly 10 years ago, tied directly to a string of reckless investments. Etone shifted, he recognized the tone, the logic, the precision. He just didn't recognize the woman delivering it. My mother's perfectly manicured fingers tapped a slow, nervous rhythm against the mahogany conference table. We took some calculated risks, my father said, trying to regain control. Calculated? I arched an eyebrow. Like investing $212,000 into an unproven energy storage concept? The room went silent. That number, the exact amount of my stolen college fund, hung in the air like a silent accusation. How did you? Ethan began, but the words died on his tongue. I rose and walked to the tall windows overlooking the city skyline. The same skyline I used to dream about from a secondhand dorm catalog I never got to use. Tell me, Mr. Parker, I said, not bothering to call him Dad. What would you say was your biggest business mistake? My father cleared his throat, perhaps expanding too quickly into high-risk markets. No, I said, turning to face them. Your biggest mistake was sitting in this very room 10 years ago, thinking your daughter would simply disappear. Color drained from my mother's face. Ethan's phone slipped from his hand and hit the table with a dull clatter. My father just stared. Something in his eyes shifting. Zoe, he whispered. Is that really you? I smiled. Hello, Dad, Mom, Ethan. Their stunned silence was everything I'd imagined and more. This is ridiculous, Ethan said, his voice shaky. You're Z. Carter? The founder of ClearPath? Actually, I said, sliding a document across the table, it's Zoe Parker Carter now. I legally changed it years ago. You'd know that if you'd ever truly looked for me. My mother blinked back tears. We did look. No, I interrupted. You waited a few weeks maybe. Then you assumed I'd come crawling back when the money ran out. I turned to Ethan. How'd that revolutionary energy system turn out, the one you needed my future to fund? He flushed. There were setbacks. Funny, I said, clicking my laptop, because Caltech, a subsidiary of my company, seems to have solved those setbacks quite well. I brought up the schematics, the very ones that had made me a billionaire. My father leaned forward, stunned. You own Caltech? Among other things, I replied. ClearPath Holdings, Brightline Capital, Elite Academic Consulting, and, as of last quarter, 40% of Parker Innovation's outstanding debt. The room unraveled. Ethan stood, knocking over his chair. My mother covered her mouth with trembling hands. My father looked down at the table, seeing the wreckage of his empire, and the daughter he'd underestimated. Why, he finally asked, why not just tell us who you were? I met his eyes. Because I needed you to see me, not as a daughter you could guilt-trip or ignore, but as the investor holding the future of your company in her hands. What do you want? Ethan snapped. Revenge? I laughed. If I wanted revenge, I would have bought you out in secret and shut you down in one press release. I stood, adjusting my blazer. No, I'm here to fix what you broke. But there are conditions. My father sat straighter. What conditions? First, Ethan's out. No more executive roles, no more visionary investments. He doesn't touch another company dollar. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but Dad held up a hand. Continue. Second, you both retire. You've done enough damage. Parker Innovations needs new leadership, not nostalgia. My mother looked like she might faint. And third, I said softly, you admit that sending me away was the best thing you ever did, because everything I've built, I built without your money, without your name, and without your approval. Silence. My empire glowed behind me on the conference screen. My mother's eyes welled. Ethan finally understood the truth. Do we have a deal? I asked. My father gave a slow, heavy nod. We do, Miss Carter. Good, I said, gathering my things. Contracts will be delivered tomorrow. I paused at the door. Oh, and Mom? That community college you recommended? My foundation just donated a new science wing there. I left the building that once represented everything I wasn't allowed to be, and stepped into the black car waiting at the curb. Maria sat inside, still sharp in her crisp suit. How'd it go? She asked, handing me a perfectly steeped green tea. Just like we planned, I said, smiling, though I think we'll leave the diner chapter out of the company biography. She laughed. Fair enough, but you know it's where this all started. I nodded, taking a sip. And where I stopped waiting for permission to be great. Are you sure about this? Maria asked, glancing at me as our car pulled away. Saving their company after everything they did? I looked back at the Parker Innovations building, soon to be Parker Carter Technologies, thinking about the scared 18-year-old who had left home with just $100 and a fire in her chest. You know what I learned in that diner, Maria? I said quietly. Sometimes the best revenge isn't tearing others down. It's building something so undeniable, they're forced to face what they threw away. And did they? She asked. I smiled, remembering my father's stunned silence, my mother's tearful stare, Ethan's shattered pride. They will, I said, every time they see the name on the new letterhead. You kept the Parker name? Of course, I replied, opening my laptop to check the markets. I did say I'd help the family business, just on my terms. As we drove past the skyline that once felt unreachable, I thought of the Duke acceptance letter framed in my office, right beside my first business license, my first $1 million check, and a name tag that read Z, Night Shift. Because sometimes the best future isn't given to you. It's built $1 one dream in one relentless step at a time. Thank you for listening to my story, for walking beside me through the quiet heartbreaks and the loud victories. I didn't tell it for pity. I told it because I know I'm not the only one who's ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or replaced by someone who didn't earn what they were given. If my story spoke to you, leave a comment below. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. Tell me if you've ever been in my shoes, or if you're still trying to find your way out of them. I read every message. And if you believe in second chances, in building something from nothing, in rising after being written off, hit that subscribe button and join me here. This channel isn't just about stories, it's about truth, grit, and the quiet strength inside people like us. Here's my advice. Stop waiting for permission to become who you already are. The world won't always cheer you on. Sometimes the very people who should believe in you won't. That's okay. You don't need their applause. You need your own belief, your own fire, your own first step. Whether you're starting with $100 or a broken heart, remember this. You are not defined by what they gave you, but by what you choose to create. So stick around, because if you think this story was powerful, the next one might just be yours.